Hello, folks. Hello, Star Wars fans, and welcome to another episode of Trek Tonight Mandalorian Edition. We are here once again with our good friend Joe Townsel. Joe,
hello, guys. Doing well. Happy to be here. And I gotta tell you right up the top.
Yep.
That this week's episode of The Mandalorian reminded me of one of my favorite dad jokes, as it were.
Okay.
And that is the following. What did the crusty old pirate say when he turned 80 years of age?
What's that?
I, matey. Okay, there you go. I'll get that out of the way.
That took me a second. That really did take me a second.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all in the delivery.
That is a super dad joke.
It sure is. How about you, Leo? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. The weather's been nice here in New York. It's starting to get a little warmer, although it's still that kind of mix of kind of chilly. You still have to put on your jacket, to go out, and it's not quite. I feel like we haven't had a proper spring in years.
Right.
I'm not sure we're going to get one this year. It may just be chilly, super hot.
Yeah.
Seems to be the pattern.
Yeah. Chilly, sweat dripping down your pants.
Yeah. So,
I'm trying to be cleaner in this. I'm trying to be cleaner in this particular show because I, for some reason, think more children might watch about Star Wars. I don't know. Probably not. But that's why there's no raunchy
the pirate joke I just told.
Oh, that was a good one.
Appropriate for all ages.
Oh yeah, exactly. It was general audiences.
Yeah.
Yes. Not particularly funny, but appropriate.
No, it was fine. It was absolutely fine. Well. I thought this week was a particularly good episode of Mandalorian. One of my faves. We're on episode 5 now, which has us over the edge of over the hump, if you will, of the series.
Yeah.
Of the season. And but I'm going to throw it out to you guys. Joe, what did you think of your general impressions?
Well, my general impressions are and this goes for the series as a whole. I do sample the series. Have seen every episode. I've seen about half, I would estimate. Only 2 this year, which I both enjoyed tremendously. This one, I really enjoy what I call the Clint Eastwood vibe, the old time westerns he did, as far as the mysterious stranger coming in to save the town that's up against the powers that be, and
right.
That very much was in place here. It seems to be moving the plot ahead very well. Also, for what I saw in episode 3 when we first saw the now I'm drawing a blank. I want to say it was an amnesty people.
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
Of course, we saw the Return of Fur, which I know we'll get into later. But
sure.
I just thought it's just a good kind of sci-fi western deal, which with a little bit of intelligence on it. So that really appeals to me.
Good. Yeah. If you like that sort of sci-fi spaghetti western thing, you probably would have enjoyed the Mandalorian episodes of Book of Boba Fett. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I started that, didn't get back to it, so I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, I was not the huge fan of the first part of that, but once they brought Mando into the show and it kind of became the Mando show, it was sort of like Mandalorian 2.5. I really enjoyed it. So the ending of it was great.
I don't want to do too deep a dive into the Book of Boba Fett. Boba Fett was always a character I found really intriguing, his first appearance on the holiday special and that little animated short. And then, an Empire, and got in a rather an unfortunate sort of comical ending in Return of the Jedi. But the 2 episodes, to reiterate what Chris said, the 2 episodes that were focused on the Mandalorian, on Din, were excellent. And I felt guilty for liking them so much because it's not his show. This is But I'm glad we got them nevertheless. Yeah, the Camera Geek says, I never understood the Boba Fett love. See, Mandalorians are cool. Look at
Yeah,
everything they have is cool. Their
Yeah, he
armor
was
is cool.
cool.
Their spaceships are cool.
His kid, the costume was cool, and at that point, he was mysterious.
Yeah, he was very mysterious.
So you just like the Phoenix in Mystery Men, he was
Yes.
terribly mysterious.
Terribly mysterious. Yes. I really enjoyed this episode. Is it the Mandalorian?
The Mandalorian is cool. That's right.
Yes. This felt very like in a way, in a certain element, like what Joe said, sort of the Western vibe, because Westerns were definitely a big influence on George Lucas in the original trilogy, as well as samurai films and other stuff.
Right.
But it had that Western vibe, about the people coming together, a bit of, Magnificent Seven / Seven Samurai kind of thing going on there.
Yeah.
But it was exciting. There was, there's a big, aerial battle and person to person gunfights on the streets of Navarre.
Yep.
Tons of aliens in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And that all was a lot of fun. And also sort of jumping a little bit to the end, this was the thing that is pushing Bo-Katan. Like we were discussing whether Bo-Katan would be sort of the person to help unite all the Mandalorians.
Right. And
I'm jumping right to the end, but if you haven't seen this episode, why are you watching us?
Right, exactly.
Spoilers,
because spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Anyway, where the armoress is talking with her, and she's like, "Take off your helmet." And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Do you respect my role, or is my not my her authority, but her position?" She's
basically
like,
her position.
Okay, yeah. And she takes off her helmet and she explains, since you've walked two paths, you're the one to bring all the Mandalorians together.
Right.
And then it's not the last scene, it's the second last scene of the episode where they're walking through all the other Mandalorians and she's there without her helmet on. And she looks uncomfortable as if she's not wearing any clothes. Like this,
right, exactly.
Shame.
Yeah, exactly. Shame.
But it was just sort of this like shocking moment. And then, the armor explains what the deal is. And they're like,
right,
this is the way, they're all like,
yeah.
And she believed her that she saw the mythosaur, because there was a little bit of debate amongst us and I think other people online.
Right.
As to when she tells her the story and she goes, this is the way. He's like, is she just saying that to get out of an awkward conversation?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I had that conversation with my wife this morning, actually, because it was like, as we talked about last week, and I mentioned to her, I said, we talked about this on the show. I said, that this is the way has many different uses. And at that moment, it did feel like it was like, yeah, okay, this is the way, like, let's move on to something else. But clearly she did believe her, which is interesting. Again, hey, Craig Lubin's here. And Craig.
Yeah.
Well, I hate this mouse. I've got to buy a new mouse. Craig says, Boba Fett, where? And accidentally flies into a pit, never to be seen again until he gets his own show.
Yep.
Many decades later. Although I hope the executives at Disney Plus are listening, because I think that Leo, inadvertently or otherwise, has given them their next big hit, and that would be the Mandalorian holiday special. So
I would watch the hell out of that. It's Life Day. It's got to be.
Let's face it, we'd watch pretty much anything.
That's true. But the other sort of storyline is how when what's his, now I'm forgetting, because I took some notes. See if I
who are you talking about?
The Pirate King.
Oh geez, yeah, I've forgotten his name too.
Let's call him Sigmund of Sigmund and the Sea
Sigmund of the Sea Monsters. Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. He has a much better name there. But
hey, Sigmund, what's going on?
Deep 1970s cut.
Yeah.
Anyway, he shows up and who's basically like threatening. Oh, hold on, I'm being called
Sure.
to the
duty calls, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I really thought, well, I didn't get really to say it. I really enjoyed a lot of this episode. I thought the ending was fantastic. I thought that it moved the story along really well. And as I said to Goran Shard. Thank you, Gina. Goran Shard is his name.
How could that slip our minds? That's just rolls off the
Goran
tongue.
Shard. Yeah. Yeah. But funny because he's very big, so he doesn't seem like a shard to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. But at any rate.
Kind of like when you call a big guy tiny, you know?
Exactly. It's Goran Shard, Leo. Gina gave us the name. Goran
Thank
Shard.
you. Goran Shard, that's the thing, is like those Star Wars has these crazy great names. Like Goran Shard. So he's, thrown down with Grief Karga, because he's, pirate kings are notoriously keep grudges, and they start bombarding the city, and then he calls, and I do have his name written down, Captain Carlton Teva, who we've seen previously on Mandalorian. He was the guy when Mando got his new starfighter, his N1 starfighter.
Right.
He's like, is that registered? Like, it was like they were kind of like pulling him over, and but I believe he was one, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's the one who offered Cara Dune a job at the end of the first season.
I want to jump in there, Leo, and that is because episode 3, I think, which is episode 3 was the breakout one that dealt with Coruscant, correct? And the New Republic.
Yes.
I have the number.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So we have a friend, and I'm sure there may have been others who felt this way, that it was not a great thing, or in a different kind of direction from typical Star Wars, to represent the New Republic as not necessarily good guys. And what I loved about seeing that squadron of X-Wing fighters was like, no, these are the good guys.
Yeah.
Not the bureaucrats that are running this massive government that had to take over for an empire that ruled it all just by squashing it under its thumb.
Yes.
I mean, let's think about it, really. How hard, if you're going to rule over that many planets in a galaxy, really the only way to do it is with an iron fist, in a way, because otherwise you would get so bogged down in bureaucracy. And I think that's part of the problem.
Well,
these guys in that squadron, they're the good guys.
Yeah.
They're the guys that our friend Adam, I'm going to mention him by name, our friend Adam was saying, well, they're supposed to be good guys. That's who they are. The real rebels. The guys who fought against the Empire. They're the good guys. And I loved his character. I love seeing him. You always talk, Leo, about wanting jackets.
Yeah.
His jacket I want.
Yeah.
That sort of bomber jacket with the Alliance thing on one sleeve, and that was a great jacket.
Star Wars has a lot of really good jackets, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Now, along Chris's point, I think I have something of relevance here.
Keith says, Camera Geek, which we know is Keith, watching us on Twitch, by the way, says, careful there, Mr. Pitcher. That's the way to the dark side. Yes, it is the way to the dark side.
Well, that's a good point.
Always.
What I was going to make is that I think what we saw this week's episode 2 was a pretty subtle but real difference between what was once the High Republic versus what is now known as the New Republic, in that, is it a member world? Oh, well, we'll get around to it, maybe.
Right.
They haven't signed up yet, so we got to prioritize this thing here.
How much
did you guys? The High Republic would have been anywhere they need to be, if at all possible, regardless.
I loved Tim Meadows in that part.
Oh yeah, Colonel Tuttle.
Yeah, he was great, and it took me a moment to remember where I knew him from, because he's gotten a little bit older and so on. And I'm thinking, that voice, I know that voice, and then I realized, oh, it's Tim Meadows. That's fantastic.
He does an excellent beleaguered bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, is like, here's the problem that I think people are having with the New Republic. And if you do like an old school sort of sci-fi thing, it's like the evil's defeated, everybody's yay, and things get better immediately.
Right.
But taking over any kind of a government is an extraordinarily daunting task.
Yeah.
And everybody needs help, and you have to like how do you prioritize who gets help first?
Right.
And while his thing about like it's not a member world, and of course you've got the what's her name? Elia Kane, who is
little minx.
She's coming in and be like, "Oh, do you want anything from the commissary?" And like,
yeah, no, I love that. Yeah.
And I mean, she's a character who I'm enjoying hating because she's just like worming her way in and trying to be. She's like, "Oh, I was rescued, I was liberated." And like,
it was liberated.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. It's like we liberated everybody in Iraq.
So, but just also as a side note, that first scene on the planet, I believe, is called Adelphi because they're called the Adelphi Rangers.
Right.
Is this alien who comes up and is talking with the captain is a character from Star Wars Rebels, which was an animated show.
Yeah.
Character Zeb Orleos. He's a Lasat. And if you do a little bit of digging, that alien image was Ralph McQuarrie's first impression of Chewbacca.
Yes.
If you see that old McQuarrie, if you find that old McQuarrie illustration.
Oh man, we should find that and post that on the
We
Facebook.
will, and it's and I love that they folded that back in.
Me too.
But
I knew I had. You know what? Thank you, Leo, because I knew I had seen that. I knew he was familiar.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it goes back to that far.
Yeah, I would also, as a side note, recommend Star Wars Rebels. It's anime. There were 4 seasons,
right?
And it's really very good.
Yeah.
So, Craig Loomis says, I think that we're seeing the rise of the First Order. I'm not sure we're seeing the rise of the First Order, but what we are seeing is that the New Republic while has good intentions, I think is overwhelmed.
Right.
Well,
again, like I say, it's a humongous task. Well,
how effective was the United States 5 years after the Revolutionary War?
Well, yeah, but the Empire didn't necessarily do it 100% because if they had, they'd still be there. But the only way the Empire was, in my opinion, as I said before, was able to rule over that many planets was because they just squashed them all. And anybody
they did, but that is also what led to their demise.
Right. Exactly.
And as we see in the last 3 trilogies, the New Republic is, let's call them ineffectual.
Right.
Which gives rise to the Resistance, which is the new version of the rebellion.
Yeah.
Because the Resistance gets the First Order. But I think it's difficult. I think judging them, from a cartoony point of view, like an old school, it's not fair because that's not the kind of story they're telling here. It's more subtle. And
okay, remind me, Leo, what's the name of the old Imperial officer we love to hate? What's her name?
I
don't have it in front of me.
Kane.
Kane, yes.
Okay. I thought for sure, and let me see if either one of you guys thought this, when our captain is flying and he's by himself in his X-Wing, I thought for sure he was going to get killed.
I'm glad they didn't because I like the character. I like the actor.
But I thought for sure she was going to have set him up to squash him.
I think I agree with Chris. I think there was a bit of nice misdirection there for a moment.
Yeah, there was. And just notes in terms of the, the Adelphi base. And it very much looked like an allied, going back to Star Wars is sort of ties to World War II sort of, vibe. It looked like an allied air base somewhere like in Guam or something like that, somewhere in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
Also,
I loved it. And I loved the idea that it was sort of like acid rock, was playing. And, these
70s,
guys were all
the 70s, man. That's when Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
Also, just as a little Easter egg, Dave Filoni, Dave Filoni, Rick Famuyiwa, and Deborah Chow, who are all like showrunners and directors,
Right.
who appeared in The Mandalorian the first season.
Mhm.
Was it the first season or maybe? Yeah, it was the first season. As X-wing pilots are all hanging out at the base. I loved seeing all those. You know, they're not rebel pilots anymore. They're ostensibly, you know, New Republic, but they call themselves the Asante Rangers.
Right. Right. Cool.
I should write these Delphi Rangers.
Delphi, yes.
And it's funny because the bartender, who's an alien, we saw that same species of alien in the cantina scene in the original film. So It's a nice little, although he had kind of a Rick James thing going on with his hair.
Yeah. Again, a Genesect gem.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of little
always.
Easter eggs. But it's the fact that, you know, this captain contacts the Mandalorians. He was like, and he goes up, he like puts his hands up, like, and they're all like, you know, Paz Vizsla is like, you know, because he's like, well, we've got to move now because we've discovered our base, and he's, you know, he says, you know, unless we kill him, and you know, man, it's like, all right, simmer down.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know, but the idea that Grief Karga, who is, you know, was fought against them in the second or third episode,
right,
of the original series, and they have to, you know, like, are we going to help them or not? And we also find out that R5 was his contact. Apparently, he worked for the rebellion.
I love that. I'm loving what they're doing with R5.
Yeah.
He's got a little history there, doesn't
giving him, because that's, I mean, okay, maybe it's fan service, but it's fan service I like.
Yeah.
Because there were stories that and rumors and fan stuff in books and things that made R5 part of a reluctant member of the rebellion. But I'm glad they're making it canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like it was kind of a nice little touch in giving that character. I mean, it's most likely all remote. I don't think they put anybody inside.
I don't know about you guys, but I get a warm fuzzy whenever I see an X-wing in this movie.
I love it. X-wings are my favorite. You know, they're just the classic Star Wars fighter.
Right. And it was a nice lead in to a Delphi to see the Y-wing land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see Y-wings, it's all that. They're hitting all those notes, and I'm enjoying it. Even when the captain puts on his helmet, he's about to leave the Mandalorians. There's a little bit of a piece of music which I think they played maybe towards the beginning of the Death Star attack, like when people were like gearing up.
Right.
If you listen, there's like a few notes of this little bridge, this little bit. I think bridge like I know anything about music.
Oh, like these. Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean.
And it was like it was done in a different tone, but it was those. I was like, oh, they like you makes you remember all the stuff you love, just like all the little beeps and boops that are very specifically Star Wars.
Yes. Well, and it's what we have been admiring so much about season 3 of Picard.
Yes.
You know, bringing those, you know, music, a sense of smell, all these things bring back memories. And in television, music is really, you know, they're visuals, of course, but also music is a great way to give you that recall, that sensory
sense
recall.
memory. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have a couple of touches, which I'm going to call potential only because I think I need Leo to confirm them if I saw them correctly. But I spotted in the bar, I believe, briefly just some old Imperial helmets and maybe the probe from Empire Strikes Back up there as trophies or whatever up above the bar.
I didn't see that, but now I'm going to have to go back and look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one that was most pronounced was the probe because it was so much bigger than the helmets, and it could just be regular props. But I did enjoy the fact that when on R5, that his little thing that comes off the top of his head, the little thing at the top actually detaches and becomes a probe of its own. I thought,
that was.
I didn't ever see that before. That was great.
That was such a good thing. That was the captain's R2 unit, and it's like,
Oh, okay.
just like, yeah, and like this little wedge, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I love that. That was great. That
Yeah.
we're sort of jumping to the very end, which is okay because we're really we're hyperspacing all over the map here. And
I don't know. I kind of like it when we don't sit there and go step
beat
by
by
step.
beat,
By
yeah.
step. Okay, then
But-
he said, she said.
So he finds an old Lambda shuttle, which are the Imperial shuttles with the 3 wings, and it's adrift. And he said his R2 unit sends a little probe, which is like one of his wedges from the top of his let's call it his head, comes up and he's like, and it goes in there. And it reminded me, especially because it's doing like this sort of light scan, and there was this sort of smoky effect, and it reminded me very much of the opening of Aliens. When they find Ripley's pod, escape pod.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because for me, it made me think of when Ballard discovered the Titanic. Also, but
there's a bit of that in there too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yours is a little more topical to science fiction, but yeah.
Well, same director, James Cameron. So
there you go. Yeah.
And the crew's all been killed. This was Moff Gideon's ship, or the ship that he was transporting him.
Right.
And there's a piece of Beskar embedded into the inside of the ship. And it's like, was he taken by Mandalorians? So the question is, was he taken, to be executed? Because the Mandalorians seem to have a due process doesn't seem to be as much of a thing with Mandalorians,
right,
as it is with the Republic or even the Empire. So the question is, was he taken or did they spring him? Are there Mandalorians who are like, let's ally with him?
And that's going to be the thing, because as we know, the Mandalorians are very fractured, and we've come to be told that they all have different agendas and
I've read or heard some speculation that the Mandalorians were actually in pretty high power positions during the sequel trilogy. We just didn't hear of it, and they make it later on, continuity wise, in the Star Wars saga.
I'm very down for more Mandalorian stuff. I'm again, it's like they're just so cool. They have the coolest armor. Their ships are cool, like Bo-Katan ship is, and we've seen those ships in Clone Wars. And even in Star Wars Rebels, and they're just so cool looking. They've got those 2 wings that can move, and she did a Tokyo drift the other week, being chased by TIE fighters.
Key says there's talk of different tribes of Mandalorians. My money is on Mandalorians sprung him.
Yeah, so we'll be curious, because some Mandalorians worked with the Empire during that period.
Yeah.
Right. And then he follows up to say, and Bo-Katan is going to unify the tribes. Right. So,
I think that's what they're setting up.
Right.
I think this is, in a way, I think they're setting up the next season.
Well, and I know so my wife, Gina, huge Battlestar Galactica fan. I mean, obsessively huge. That and Doctor Who, they're her 2 major things. So she is so thrilled to see what's her name back playing Bo-Katan.
Katie Sackhoff, yes.
Yeah, thank you. What's her name? And now she gets to walk around with her helmet, so you can really see her.
Yeah.
But it was funny because when she was gearing up to lead the assault, she was describing, and I noticed this too. She's describing what the plan is and how they're going to do it, and we have to behave like a military unit. We have to do this. And she's standing there, and her gesticulation and her hand gestures and her whole stance was like Starbuck talking to the Viper pilots. I mean, it really reminded me of that.
There's a bit of that, but there was also a bit of, there's a kind of a Princess Leia vibe to it. Like she's
a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
And I think she is a better leader than Din Djarin, and Din Djarin is well, I guess, I mean, as I said, you're a clan of 2, it's him and Grogu, but he's he's working with everybody now, and he's getting better at it, but he's sort of like, he feels like the kind of guy you send off on a mission, you know.
Well, and let's face it, she does have a potential legitimate claim to the throne of Mandalore.
Yeah.
And she was raised by people who were royals.
Yeah.
So she's going to have that leadership quality in her somewhere just from being around it. So I think it's cool.
Well, can I take that opportunity to talk about the leadership of another character? And please, guys, help me out with the character name. But the one guy, when they're first the Mandalorian saying we need to help these folks, and then the guy gets up behind him and says, well, why should we do this? And after about a minute says, because we're Mandalorians. I thought that was excellent.
I love that speech. I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought
it was great because you think he's like about to shoot it down.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Because he's been such a fucking prickly pear.
Yeah.
The whole like I said prickly pear, but I also dropped an F-bomb before I said it.
So. I know.
Yeah. Sorry, kids.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, Baloo.
It's been all
deep cut. There's a deep cut for you.
Yeah. So, but the idea and the fact is, after they've defeated these pirates, and in a very exciting, aerial battle and ground battle, the pirates' corsair ship had bowl turret placements on the bottom of the ship, which again goes back to the World War II aesthetic of early Star Wars.
Right.
But it also made me think of, it was either a poem or a short story I read in high school about how dangerous being a ball turret gunner was during the Second World War. Starbuck.
Angela. Hey, Angela. How are you? I didn't know you were here. I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
Yeah, Starbuck is great. Hang on one second. Just wanted to jump this thing because it pertains. Din is a good soldier, but Bo is a tactician.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Leo.
But there's at the end, Grief Karga offers them like this big tract of land, for their home. He says, you may not have a, planet, but now you have a home.
Right.
And they're all like, very, in that Mandalorian sort of taciturn, thing, their vibe. But it's funny because I was wondering, like, is he going to be like a dick? Like, is he going to like screw them over? But I'm glad he didn't.
Right.
But I also know, like, Grief Karga doesn't do things for no reason or out of sheer sentimentality. Although he does have friends, and I think he's a little sentimental about Din and Grogu. But with a whole troop of Mandalorians, nobody's going to fuck with him.
Right.
Or exactly. that planet.
Yeah. Yeah. So, he's not giving a tract of land to a bunch of circus clowns.
No.
He's got a built-in defense force now.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen though, is it possible that he's also on kind of a humility character path? Because I seem to recall that he actually corrected somebody where they didn't call him the high master or whatever. And now it's like the reverse in this episode.
Right.
Yeah, well, that was
he got humbled a little bit. Yeah.
His droid. That was a nice little callback on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's funny because, becoming a legitimate figure, a leader in a community is different than being like, a broker for, the Bounty Hunters Guild, even if you're the head broker in this, territory. Keith says,
I'm always a sucker for the moment that good guys decide to behave like good guys.
It is. I do like it, and I was relieved by that.
This episode was the moment for the Mandalorians.
Yeah, this is the point. This is the point when the Mandalorians stop becoming like a disparate group, and start on the path of reuniting. Right. Now that we also know that Mandalore, while seriously fucked up, is still like it has a breathable atmosphere and might be able to be recovered with a lot of work.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys.
It'll be like something up a 5.
What was that? I'm sorry, Joe. What did you say?
I said it sounds like it's gonna be a little bit by recovering Seti Alpha 5.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. I'm told we need to go to a commercial break, and we will. So just hold that thought, and we will be right back.
The Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot from the Star Wars action figures collection, each sold separately.
I'm Jawa. Want to buy a droid? Sure, what you got?
It's R5-D4 and the power droid.
Sold.
And here's Greedo, Han Solo, and Walrus Man.
You've had it now, Solo. Yeah. Greedo, it's Ben Kenobi and his lightsaber. We're in trouble. Let's get out of here.
Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot, R5-D4, Greedo, and other action figures sold separately from Kenner.
From Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, it's Millennium Falcon that you put together. Batteries not included.
Nice landing, Han Solo. Uh-oh, come on, Chewbacca. Stormtroopers are coming.
Action figures each sold separately.
Got him on radar. I'll fire the laser cannon.
There's even a hidden storage hatch.
Ready for takeoff. Jump to light speed. We're gone. On to the Death Star.
Millennium Falcon from Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection. Action figures each sold separately.
I don't think anybody's ever said onto the Death Star with so much enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, I was really glad we found that commercial because it had R5 in it.
It is.
Yeah.
It was like, hi, I'm a Jawa. Do you want to buy a droid? Sure. What do you got?
What do you got?
Everybody's friends.
Yeah,
I love that.
Exactly. There's a couple of maybe next week I'll play. I got a couple more, and there's a great one about the Death Star playset, which I just think is hysterical because they've got Darth Vader manning a laser cannon. I mean, I just think it's really funny, but you know,
Do I have to do everything?
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Just get out of the way. Let me do it. Let me do it.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love those toys, though. I got to tell you, and I had that Millennium Falcon. I think.
Oh, neat. I
I
never
know
had
at one point I had a Millennium Falcon. I don't know whether it was that one or whether there was one before Empire. I don't think so. I think it came out of Empire.
I never had any of those toys.
Right. But do you remember though?
Yeah.
That we took a video, how to make videos course when we were kids.
Yeah, on a
And
Saturday.
I brought my Star Wars figures and we made a stop motion film.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun. That's how long I've known Leo. We were like,
Yes.
what, like 12?
Something like that, yeah.
You need to find that, make it a special feature of one of the show.
Yeah.
I don't know where that is. I don't think we ever keep it. I think it was like, that was like a new school class or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever got like a copy of it. It was
they just erased over it. They erased over it for the next group.
Probably.
Oh man, that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, back in those days, videotape was expensive.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. My mom was a regular on a TV show called The Doctors on NBC. It was a soap opera, and
I remember The Doctors.
Yeah, and they would record over tape sometimes.
Listen, they did the same thing with Doctor Who. A lot of episodes got lost.
Right.
Now they find like audio. You see this on BBC America every so often. They'll have like part of the episode, and then some of the audio track, and they do these sort of very stiff animations.
Really? I've never noticed that, but then I haven't watched a lot of them. I haven't done a real deep dive.
They haven't done it in a while, but it's interesting. But it's it's not the most dynamic watch, but it's it's worth checking out if you are a deep Doctor Who fan.
Well, and you were all about it when it was on back when we were kids. I mean,
it came on a local station, WOR, which is Channel 9, on Saturday mornings.
Yeah,
and each episode was about a half hour.
Yeah,
and they would show like 2 back to back on Saturday morning.
Yeah,
and the actor who played Ben Franklin in 1776 did like little voiceovers. They'd be like, "Oh, the doctor's in trouble this week." And when Doctor Who came back, when they rebooted it with Eccleston, because I expected it'd be like, "Oh, it's gonna be a half hour." Like, "Oh, it's going long," and like because they were hour episodes, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
But kisses.
Walrus
Walrus
Man.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like a lot of those aliens, especially the ones who appeared in the cantina scene, were just referred to as, Walrus Man, or,
Or Hammerhead.
Hammerhead, and so on.
Yeah.
Where they got a lot of their names is West End Games, the guys who did the first tabletop RPG for Star Wars.
Right.
They would call up Lucasfilm because they had the rights, and they were like, so what are these aliens called? They're like, yeah, we don't have any ideas. Can we call them Ithorians? They'd be like, sure, sounds good. So that's how a lot of these names, like Greedo's species, are called Rhodians, but it's never said in the show or the movies. But that's where a lot of it came from. It's sort of
another Genesect gem, because I did not know that. I did not know that.
Hey, may I share my own VHS tape story briefly? When I was in college, that's when they were, of course, starting to play Next Generation. Right. So my roommate and I had our respective VCRs set up side by side, and we decided we're going to record every episode, because who knows when it ever appear, if and when it appear on video.
Right.
So, of course, we had to make sure that after we recorded it, we broke out that little flap off the side of the tape. And if for some reason we wanted to re-record, then we had to put tape over that hole.
Right.
Yeah.
But the horrible part of the story is that, I forget which episode, but it was, something, if you missed it or couldn't record it, you had to wait 6 months for one rerun.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first we got screwed up. We tried it again the second time around. And then the broadcast screwed up. So we never got that episode recorded properly. So thank God they put them on.
Remember what episode it was? Joe, do you remember what episode it was?
I don't know for sure. It was well into the season, so I'm going to guess. It seems to me it was Hide and Q, because I remember Q being in it.
Now, here's the thing, and this is an interesting fact, that I don't know whether this was true in the Next Generation era, but in the original series era, not every episode got a repeat showing. NBC would decide, you know what, we didn't like that one enough. We're not gonna repeat that one. So when they went into the summer and they were showing their reruns, they didn't all get a rerun.
I know. I also religiously recorded. I had like the whole run of Next Generation on VHS, and by the time, which is funny because I never went back and looked at them. I just cataloged them. Like, I don't know why. So I would do that, and eventually, when
like a monk, you sat there and
exactly,
yeah.
And I would had these I had over 100 or more. I don't know, because I could get 2 episodes at the best speed on a cassette.
Oh my God! I hadn't thought about that in years, that you could record them at different speeds.
Oh yeah, you didn't want to get 6 on a tape. That's not.
Wow.
You could do that, but the quality would be that good.
I had forgotten that. Oh my goodness! Yeah.
I just got rid of when I got rid of the VCR, when I started moving into DVDs, and I was stuff. I sold a bunch of old VHS tapes. And I gave some to some friends of mine who still had a VCR. And now I don't regret not having it, because it ate up a lot of real estate.
Right.
But it was funny because I'm like, why did I record? I just obsessively recorded these things to have them in my mind. It never occurred to me that streaming would be a thing, or
Laserdisc,
or Laserdisc, or
DVDs, or
Well, the idea that
you know what? My first wife, dear Carol, used to tape all her soap operas. She had soap operas she liked to watch because she had a friend who was in them. That's how she got started. She had a friend that she acted with in college, and he got a major role on a soap opera. I think it was All My Children. And she started to watch because he was on, and then she just got hooked into the soap opera. But oh my gosh, we had stacks of VHS tapes. And she would eventually record over them, but sometimes it'd be she wouldn't get a chance to watch. So there'd be 3 weeks worth of soap opera stacked up waiting to be seen.
Oh my God.
Chris and Leo, did you have by chance the video cabinets that had the fake adhesive wood grain on them with the little black pull-out drawers? Yeah.
I never
Yeah,
had
I know
those.
what you mean.
I know what you mean. I never had
I
those.
do. I didn't have that. No, I had a rotating tower that you
Oh.
could slip VHS tapes in. I still have it. It's out somewhere. It was actually made out of wood. It was very nice. But completely serves no purpose now because it's just the size of VHS tapes.
Yeah.
So
We just keep buying the White Album over and over again. What can you say?
yeah, right, exactly. All right, we've really gone down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
Jump us back.
Yes. Thanks,
Craig
me. Sorry about
Lubin,
that.
Greg Lubin, probably about 15 minutes ago, said Mandalorians behaving like Jedi samurai. And yeah, they kind of are. Although I think we're getting away from all of the pomp and ritual that makes them similar to Jedi and a little bit more into the military capability. And I got to tell you, who doesn't want to be Fizz with that huge automatic weapon that he's got? That thing is he shows up on the street and it's like and it was like, oh my god, that is so cool. That is so impressive.
It was.
And I loved the fact that the armorer got into the combat.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I love she comes in from behind. These guys have mounted up a heavy repeating blaster on the balcony of Grief Karga's office. She comes in, she's got a hammer and like tongs, and she starts like knocking these guys out. Yeah. And it's just like, it was great because we've never seen her fight before. But she just went in and just fucked shit up. Right. Like she grabbed one guy from the back of his neck with the tongs. Yeah. And she hits the other guy with a hammer, a Trandoshan. The lizard people who are we've seen decent representations of them sometimes in the video games, but they're mostly known for hunting Wookiees, Trandoshans. So I have very little sympathy for a Trandoshan, defenestrated, in the service of Navarra. So was it Navarro? Anyway, Navarro,
I believe, yes.
Let's call the whole thing off. But she was badass and I liked it. And she's proven to be not quite as rigid when, because she sends Bo-Katan off to unite the tribes of Mandalore. That she has like she doesn't seem as dogmatic as she has in the past. Which I like to see those sort of character developments, to see those steps forward.
Well, the drum I keep beating in all of our discussions is that, to me, it all comes down to writing and characterization. I mean, the rest of it's fun, it's visually appealing, but if it's empty, it's not gonna have a staying power. And that's one thing I'm enjoying about what I've seen of this season, is that there's something going on here. Still a lot of fun, lots of good action and fights and all that great Star Wars stuff. It's good to see some character and plot development, as well as the politics, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, it's just because we're seeing the problems that the New Republic is facing, but this is another group, whether you call them a political faction or not, that are struggling with their own problems that are connected to what's going on in the larger galactic community, but they're not. It's not. I'm losing my train of thought, but it's more centralized to them, to the Mandalorian problem. Their sort of diaspora across the galaxy, and the idea that their planet is so destroyed that you can't live on it anymore. Craig Lubin says the electric gun blaster is based on the same electric gun used in another sci-fi adventure movie that Carl Weathers was in, Predator. That's true. The chain gun.
Nice catch.
Which is that's Predator. I wouldn't. It's not Citizen Kane, but it's a real fun, watchable movie. Chris, you're muted. Well, Chris, you're muted. We can't hear you. I'm hoping this will mean Din will get to take his helmet off, at least in front of Grogu. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful for the sort of the future. Feels like the Mandalorians, there might be a bit of an acceptance of other ideas as long as they sort of unite as a people.
Maybe at the end they'll all have a barbecue.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
A beach barbecue. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it won't be a bunch of people in bathing suits wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would also watch that, to be fair.
I would too. I would too. Hey guys, we are at 51 minutes after the hour. Let's start thinking about closing thoughts. What are you guys thinking? Any predictions for the future, or any last thoughts we haven't covered yet for the episode?
We just lost Joe.
You lost Joe.
No, he's. I'm going to assume that it was some pirate activity in his area.
Yeah, could be.
But I have no doubt Joe will take care of it.
Yeah.
Well, here's just a little bit of a Genesis gem. One of the flying sequences takes place in Bullock Canyon, and Jeremy Bullock is the man who played Boba Fett he was physically in the suit in
cool.
both Empire and Jedi.
Cool.
And if you ever see there's a picture of him while they were filming Return of the Jedi at Jabba's palace, and he has his helmet off because they're in between takes,
Right.
and he's standing next to some of the dancing girls, and he looks like an accountant. He has like a mustache and sort of like, I don't know if he was bald or receding hairline. He's wearing these glasses, and he looks like you would hire him to like do your taxes or make sure your will was in order.
Yeah.
And it doesn't in any way ruin Boba Fett for me, but I just find that sort of a delightful image.
That is funny.
So
That is funny.
I think this is going to be, the rest of this season is going to be about the what's going to happen with Mandalore, about the struggle to bring Mandalorians back together as one people. And I know somehow Moff Gideon will be involved because I think he wants that Darksaber back.
Oh yeah.
And who could blame him? It's very cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Leo. I think that's definitely going to be the thrust of the season, and
I think it will set up next season too, because I don't think they're going to. I mean, I could be wrong. They could resolve everything this season, but I think we may have a bit of a cliffhanger. Is my prediction.
Right.
And I think the new battle for Mandalore will be perhaps what the next season is.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. That'll be cool. Yeah. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad. I wrote to you earlier today, Leo. I wrote to Leo and I said, yeah, I really like the direction this is going in. And I thought it was great. And again, I would like to see more of this Adelphi group. I'm hoping.
Yeah, the Delphi Rangers are very cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get to see more of them because I really enjoy the captain, number one. And hang on. Angela says, if my mouse will ever cooperate. I saw an interview with Giancarlo, and he said that he should be showing up soon.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, you don't hire a guy like that, like him, and not have him be there,
Right.
Or kill him off. He's
Right.
It's interesting that they killed off Goran, space, King Goran, space
Right.
pirate King Goran. Anyway,
Yeah.
he's dead. I don't know why I'm trying to get his name right. What is he gonna do?
Well, you assume he's dead because his ship blew up.
His ship blew up, but that other, I made a note of his, Vane, that other pirate. Oh, we got Joe back.
Yep.
Excellent. Vane,
Sorry, guys.
who was piloting
I am
the
sorry.
snub fighters.
No problem, Joe.
He was the last snub fighter around. He's like, you know what, Captain?
Yeah.
Seen the funny papers.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about that. Are we going to see him again, do you think? I'm pretty sure we will.
Oh yeah, I think he'll come back. He's a good bad guy.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's slightly disappointing that Goran was killed, but like you don't want it to be like an old like a 1980s like kids cartoon where like Mum-Ra is never fully defeated. He always comes back next day with a new plan.
Yeah,
it sort of becomes like ridiculous after a while.
Listen, He-Man.
Yeah, or Skeletor, or any
Right, yeah,
any of his ilk.
Or Kenny from South Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kenny did keep resurrecting.
But I do like the he was a good villain for a couple episodes, but since Vane, one of his henchmen survived, who definitely has a strong streak of self-preservation.
Right.
So I'm sure we'll see him again. But I mean, it's disappointing because he was a cool character, but on the other hand, you can't just keep everybody alive, or else there's no stakes.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah. Oh my. All righty.
Joe, do you have any predictions? Because we were just
Joe, we lost you during the prediction thing. Any predictions?
Oh man. Well, not predictions per se. It just seems to be following a nice logical progression in the storytelling. Right. I do like the fact that the various Star Wars TV series are focused on a particular group of soldiers and whatnot, because otherwise something that happens in Star Trek sometimes, the universe gets too small if you try to encapsulate everything all the time.
Right.
So I do very much enjoy that about the Mandalorian and other Star Wars series I've checked out. And I think I kind of agree with I think it was Craig that mentioned earlier. I don't think we saw a super big sign here, but I do think with what we are observing with the New Republic and so forth, that we are seeing the beginnings of the First Order, and it seems in the time frame, the historical chronological count, I think that's a logical place to be right now.
Yeah, I think you might be seeing sort of the seeds.
Exactly.
That, and that's what the captain from the Delphi Rangers was saying. He's like, you don't realize something is happening and it's bad, and if you don't act on it now, it's going to get to be too big and you're going to lose your chance, basically, is what he's saying. So, yeah, interesting.
I do want to run this past Leo as far as being another Genesis gem. I don't think it came up. Were those like Salacious Crumb type aliens in the trees?
Okay. Those were, and they're Kowakian monkey lizards. Is there?
Okay, wow. Make a note of that.
I had to look that up.
And I want to know why a monkey lizard actually had a name.
Well, they're pretty intelligent. Remember, like when the Mandalorians were going down the street, they were like, because they got shot at by the pirates. Yeah. They're like, hey, so they're intelligent.
And I like the fact that the Mandalorians like took the cue too. Like, they were like, I think we're gonna get ambushed.
Yeah.
Well,
which was a great moment.
They don't underestimate anybody. That's why. That's another great thing about the character arcs, is that they don't take anything lightly. It says don't dismiss them just because they're annoying and have really obnoxious laughs.
Made me think of the little monkey in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes,
it was like queuing people off the things. Yeah. Interesting.
Another great name, Salacious Crumb.
Salacious
Some of these names are just bananas, but they're wonderful.
Oh, Angela says, as a side note, I am loving Bad Batch season 1.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Bad Batch, and this new season, I haven't seen the latest episode, which dropped today, because I'm sort of prepping for the show. I'm trying not to get too distracted by other things, which is easy enough to do.
Yeah,
but it's a neat continuation of the Clone Wars sort of stories.
Sure,
because it's about a group of clones. It was Clone Force 99.
Yep,
and there was something, each one, not really defect, but they're all different. Like most of the clones are all pretty much the same.
Yeah,
some of them became pilots, and some became foot soldiers, some became officers, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But there's one guy who's like really strong, another guy who's like really smart, another guy who's like super like the killer stealthy guy.
Yeah.
And there's one guy who's who's a sniper, and they're because there's something a little off in their making, but it gave them like extra abilities.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's
a cool idea.
And it's also very much about post like after the end of the Clone Wars, like what happened to the clones, what happens,
Right.
the rise of the Empire.
Right.
And spoiler, it's not great for the clones.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Never
It's a
again.
lot of fun. I recommend watching that. And Star Wars Rebels, which is set set previous to the original New Hope, about maybe 7 years before,
Right.
thereabouts. So, and it has a lot of stormtroopers and TIE fighters and Jedi stuff.
Yeah.
And crazy aliens. One of the characters is a Mandalorian, Sabine Wren,
Right.
will likely show up in the Ahsoka show whenever that comes out.
I would think so. Yeah.
And I think we'll get to see Zeb return as well, and some of the other characters.
Yeah.
It's cool to see them in live action.
It
But
is.
if you're jonesing for some sort of old school Star Wars stuff, I recommend it.
There you go. All right, gentlemen.
I have one question before we sign off.
Yeah.
So Grogu, has his species and Yoda's been named or just nicknamed for now, the Foundlings?
Unnamed.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen a name for it yet. If anybody out there has a seed or an inkling of an idea, just post it on our.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But I feel like anytime you ask Yoda where he's from, he sort of changes the subject.
Right.
Yeah. From somewhere else I am.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There you go. All right, guys. All right, guys. Hey, just wanted to point out, especially on YouTube, folks, if you like what you see here, please remember to like and subscribe.
Yes,
and
please.
hit the bell for notifications, because we are putting out content every week, and you may remember that we come out Wednesday and Thursdays. Wednesday for the Mandalorian show, and Thursdays, of course, for Picard. Not sure what we're going to do with Star Wars after Mando ends, but we'll figure that out and we'll post about it. Also, too, please check out our Patreon page. We basically this show comes out of our pockets, and that's fine, and we love doing it. It would be nice to be able to do some bigger and grander things, and we could do that with your support. Go on remotes, go on trips to places, see interesting Star Trek, Star Wars related stuff, and bring that to you in the comfort of your home. So please consider a Patreon subscription. With that, on that page, you will see all the different tiers, the different types of things that are available at those levels. And I'm considering making a set of Warhammer 40K Mandalorian figures.
Ooh.
And we might do something with that. So maybe we'll auction that off, or we'll do something. But I think they'd be really fun, because I think the what are they called now? The
Space Marines.
Space Marines could be modified fairly easily into Mandalorians. So we shall see. I thought about that today. Any rate, guys, thank you again, Joe, for being here.
Thank you.
We
always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Always love having you on the show. We will be back. Well, we'll be back tomorrow night with the next episode of Picard, which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
And that, of course, is 8:00 Eastern. What is that? 5:00 on the West Coast?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, we come back next week and do it all again. So at any rate, again, remember to like and subscribe. And that helps us out a lot. We've got a lot of views on last week's show for Picard. So
excellent.
More than we have subscribers. So if anybody's watching and they love it,
like and subscribe.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, because it really does help us. So at any rate, all right, gents, I am being told by the wife, let's go. And that's because she's waiting to eat dinner with me.
The final and most important message of the evening.
I am starving. Yes, I know, dear. I'm hungry too. And was that something else, Joe, or are you?
No. I'm just pointing out that Gina's message is the
Yeah,
the final
that's
and
the
most important of the evening.
the
Yes.
dinner bell rang. Exactly. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna roll us out of here. It was probably your sexy guest last week on Picard.
Yes.
Maybe
Oh,
that's true.
who was that?
Maybe that's true. It was Craig Lubin. Yeah, yeah. The guy who could play the Jedi that saves Grogu
Yes.
Oh.
instead of thinking of Jar Jar Binks. So, at any rate, okay. I'm getting distracted now. Guys, I love you. May the force be with you. We will see you all tomorrow night for Picard, and have a great rest of your evening. And we'll see you at for tomorrow night's show. All righty.
Right.
Right.